exclusion in high numbers in terms of percentages. Infrastructure for finance was in its elemental stage. Women's exclusion was off the charts, and inclusion for youth was merely a drop in the ocean. Every index was stacked against us. Inclusion in the Northeast and Northwest were basic and barely recognizable. Rural people were left behind and forgotten. The urban-rural divide in inclusion was sharply pronounced. But with immense commitment and love for Nigeria and ambition to better the lot of fellow citizens, we committed to improving financial inclusion to 80% by 2020. We tried regulatory adaptation, innovative product design, and financial literacy, and we worked also to accelerate access to identity. We adapted KYC conditionalities and created an ecosystem to unleash digital financial services. We focused on a payment system that rivals its peers, not just in Africa, but beyond. We also had an eye on the cost of financial services and the proximity of these services to the people who are most in need. We did all this together with stakeholders in our ecosystem. We had a visibly high-level support, both nationally and the subnational levels. So we heard the Vice President yesterday, reiterate the commitment of the presidency to financial inclusion during his speech. This high-level commitment is heartwarming and would certainly translate into tangible action on the ground. This conference is therefore the climax of years of building behind the scenes, years of aspiration and perspiration to make a change, and years of desperation to improve lives and bring celebration to the doorsteps of the most excluded. We are happy to say that all these efforts between us and our partners are crystallizing into this watershed moment that we are witnessing since yesterday. It is indeed an honor to address this august body with a message of optimism and hope that our endeavors on ramping up efforts to bring access to finance closer to the most in need are received with utmost attention, receiving wide recognition, and have become a staple on the stable of most players in the financial services ecosystem. As the CBN governor stressed yesterday, collaboration is critical to building an inclusive financial ecosystem. This cannot be overemphasized. I also paused to ponder on the words of the DGFSS yesterday, where he opined that the CBN has an ongoing commitment to financial inclusion, leading to notable outcomes such as crashing the exclusion rate from 46.3% in 2010 to 26% in 2023. This is not a mean feat by all parameters, given our demographics in Nigeria. So a conference of this magnitude with wide-ranging interests and people and organizations from all walks of life represented certainly has an immense attraction for a lot of people. I must say, beyond this attraction, we want to emphasize the need for urgent action. Despite the successes we are celebrating today, Nigeria still has millions of people outside the financial services framework, people barely able to meet their basic needs of daily life, barely able to fend for themselves and for family. A large chunk of this demographic are women who are, in the most part, saddled with household obligations to provide for the family, mostly children. The disparities in access to finance for women compared to men are very pronounced. We know that when we empower a woman, we empower the entire family, and potentially the destinies of children are tied to this empowerment. We have seen a lot of evidence and data pointing to acute exclusion among certain demographics, particularly women, youth, rural people, Northeast and Northwest, and MSMEs. These demographics are acutely excluded in the scheme of things, and when we talk of access to finance, these demographics sharply fall behind. Access to credit for these segments has been a Herculean task due to barriers that are well documented in the literature. Identity, access to bank accounts, savings, pensions, investments, and insurance are critical to today's fast-paced and volatile environment. And talking about volatile environments, we see displacements, disruptions in business cycles, economic downturns, adverse climatic events, and loss of income. These serve to reinforce deprivation amongst the excluded. So I would not want to bore you by repeating the ominous indices, about excluded groups, but the gaps among these groups are really harrowing and require visionary solutions. And we've been seeing a lot of these solutions here today. So that's why the Lagos State Governor yesterday, in his speech, highlighted that financial inclusion ought to be a tool for equity and growth. And this underscores even Professor Ndugu's point that institutions should stand at the epicenter of financial inclusion, especially fintechs. This is very instructive for everyone in the room today, both policymakers, operators, academics, and leaders alike. It is therefore necessary that policymakers, financial services providers, digital financial services platforms, agents, civil society partners, and all forms of organizations begin to draw inspiration from the insights mined from this conference and go back with a firm resolve to move the needle drastically in your various spaces. Yesterday, we launched the Women Entrepreneurs Financial Initiative Wi-Fi Code and the Wi-Fi Dashboard, a diagnosis study on financial inclusion on forcibly displaced people. And also, we had a first plenary on financial inclusion titled Economic Development and Sustainability, which explored connectivity, interoperability, electronic identification, state and institutional capacity. Plenary 2 was themed towards a more inclusive economy and was moderated by the DG Economic Policy, Mohammed Sani Abdullahi. This plenary focused on the global economic landscape, cross-country collaboration, and trust in digital financial services. In addition, we had plenary 3 addressing gender-inclusive financing with a key focus on challenges and opportunities and was anchored by Dr. Nkiru Balomu. Furthermore, the 4th plenary of the day themed leveraging access to data to accelerate finance for women-owned and women-led enterprises was moderated by Usoro, DG Operations. It also explored the use of data to address gaps in finance for women entrepreneurs. The final plenary yesterday was titled New Frontiers in Innovation and Development. And so it looked at enhancing digital financial services to foster economic growth. And, this plenary concluded our yesterday's engagements and we reconvened at 4, we adjourned at 4:45 p.m. So those proceedings signaled our intent to, transcend beyond fads and beyond the fashionable name of financial inclusion. I've seen a lot of academics think that financial inclusion is just a fad. It's just like buzzwords like digital. And beyond, and they think that we just latch onto the coattails of financial inclusion to burnish our organizational credentials. But it is no longer the case. It has become a movement that transcends all of these peripheral attractions. You would agree with me. And so we are no longer like, all smoke and no fire, all shine and no substance, and all back and no bite. We become something that needs to be, recognized in the space. And I do think we are making a difference. I don't know about you. Are we making a difference? Hello, are we making a difference? Financial inclusion is not a fad anymore. It's no longer a fashionable word. It's something tangible that we need to take on and drive because there are millions of people, their lives are real, their situations of deprivation are real, and we need to make a change in their lives. So which is why you need to go away from this conference today and then have a firm resolve to make a change in your spaces, regardless of where you operate, big or small, large, whatever you are, you need to resolve in yourself, in your organization, to drive inclusion and bring a lasting change to Nigeria. Thank you very much, and do have a very happy deliberation today in everything that you do. Thank you.
Could we put our hands together one more time for Dr. Paul Oluigwe? standing in there for the Acting Director, Development Finance Department. It must be stated that Dr. Paul Olugbe is actually at home. He was head of the Financial Inclusion Secretariat and fittingly could be referred to as a subject matter expert here. Thank you very much. So once again, if you're just joining us, this is day 2 of the second International Financial Inclusion Conference, IFIC 24. It's a hybrid event, so you also could join us and follow proceedings live from across the world. The theme is inclusive growth, harnessing financial inclusion for economic development. And what has just happened was a recap and welcome remark by the representative of the Acting Director of Development Finance Department, Central Bank of Nigeria. Whilst Dr. Paul was speaking, I was told that some CEOs made their way into the hall. I'm going to ask that they are properly recognized. So, Olive, if you're ready with the recognitions for the CEOs who made their way earlier into the hall, I'll invite you to acknowledge their presence. But let me state that thereafter, we will be taking a message from Dr. Alfred Hanning. Dr. Alfred Hanning is the Executive Director, Alliance for Financial Inclusion. It's a video message, so I will ask the technical to cue it in and just be ready. Once Olive has done the recognitions, we will take that. Immediately after, we will have the presentation by Mr. Ekenem Isiche. It's the keynote presentation on enabling digital public infrastructure for inclusion and economic development. And I'm told that Mr. Isiche is already in the hall. Can I confirm that, Mr. Isiche? Yes, sir. Thank you very much for being here with us. So, again, just to help our participants properly make their way, we said today it's going to be very interactive and engaging, so you have the breakout sessions. I'm going to read out where you are depending on where you registered. So we have the breakout 1, unlocking insights for inclusive finance and economic development. If you registered to be a part of that discussion or conversation, unlocking insights for inclusive finance and economic development, once the presentation by Mr. Ekanem it's over and we dissolve into breakout rooms, you are going to remain in the main hall. So, unlocking insights for inclusive finance and economic development, which has speakers, Dr. Ladi Balakefi, Acting Director, Monetary Policy Department, Central Bank of Nigeria. She is moderating, actually. Ms. Elizabeth Gatal, Director, Women, World Banking. It's a member of that panel. Dr. Oluwa Tomi Eromasele, GM Efina, and Ms. Ebiheji Momo, CEO Afrigo. That is the panel on unlocking insights for inclusive finance. Your venue is right here, the main hall. The next breakout group, or the second breakout group, is on emerging issues in financial literacy and consumer protection, which has Mrs. Hawa Gambo of NDIC as moderator, Mrs. Cynthia Ipomosa, CEO Lapo Microfinance, Mr. Ni Awosopetoluatope, CEO eTransact, Mr. Usoro, Executive Director, Momo Payment Service Bank as panelists. Your venue is the main hall overflow. Main hall overflow. That is for the breakout group 2. Breakout group 3 on advancing the financial inclusion